and welcome to Chapter Select at the Movies, the book club for movies based on video games.
It just rolls off
Jens.
the tongue.
It sure does. I'm Jens. With me, as always, Randy. Hey,
Hello,
Randy.
hello. I'm good.
The
We're
Resident Evil fan of the bunch.
It's turning.
Uh-huh. Is your fandom under question now? Is it that
No, it's absolutely not. Actually, when this comes out, we're supposed to have that big Resident Evil thing where they're going to show more of the new game and have other announcements. So that will be out.
Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, so that'll be out the day before this actually comes out, but they just announced that was happening, so I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I had a feeling that your outrage about these movies would only intensify your love for the good stuff.
Yeah, no, it is honestly, any video game movie is not going to change the way I feel about the games. I'm sure when Uncharted comes out, and if it's garbage, Uncharted will still be my favorite video game series. So,
right.
I mean, it's fine. And these have so little to do with the video games themselves that it doesn't bother me that much.
This had a few moments where it felt more like the action-y later Resident Evil games, like when the Odette Fair character Carlos crashes, the giant gasoline truck into the zombie horde as a distraction. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought that kind of came close to something that might have happened in Resident Evil 5 or 6.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I want to say they probably came out around the same time.
Mm-hmm. But we're not at the point yet where they're actually incorporating stuff from 4. That'll be the next movie, I think.
Well, a little.
Okay, correct me then.
The main bad guy, who I'm blanking on his name.
So there's Dr. Isaac, and then there is
thank you. So
Wesker.
Dr. Isaac has that Euroburo stuff going on.
Oh yeah, that's right. He starts mutating. I guess did that not happen in, again, I have not played Resident Evil 3.
T-viruses and stuff happen, I mean, obviously in all the games. I mean, that's what Tyrant is a mutation of stuff. But the whole being able to reach out with his hand and have the
tentacles.
Tentacles come out. That's more of a Euroburo thing. I've never been able to say that name.
Ouroboros.
The thing from Resident Evil 4.
The snake that eats its own tail?
Yeah, but from Resident Evil 4, that's kind of what that virus does.
Okay. I did not recognize that as a Resident Evil 4 thing, but yeah, makes sense. I mean, it does. I mean, I do remember that happening in that game, but I don't know if it originated with that game, I guess. So yeah.
I mean, obviously there was mutations in all sorts in every Resident Evil game, but
right. But like,
and this movie came out 2 years after Resident Evil 4, so
okay.
I mean, this is probably actually the first movie since Resident Evil 4 came out, and you can definitely see the changes. 2 probably came out about the same time.
I mean, there's definitely a change in style. We actually have what I think is probably our best directed Resident Evil movie, just as far as like putting an action scene together and knowing where to put the camera and how to cut. Russell Mulcahey, you can tell Alexander Witt was already a bit of a stylistic step up, even though it's still, music video bullshit, what he was doing.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was a stylistic step up from Anderson. And like now you've got the director of Highlander on it. And there are shots where you can like the reveal of Las Vegas or Carlos's death, where he lights the doobie and it does like the camera pull out through the hole and past the giant zombie horde, where you can tell like, oh yeah, the guy who made Highlander and the guy who made The Shadow directed this, because it's got a lot of his stylistic hallmarks.
No, I think I would 100% agree. I think the action's a bit better in this game this movie than the first 2 movies. Everything else is worse.
Well,
the setting is worse, the setup is worse, the writing is worse. The acting is the same level, I guess.
It's still written by Paul Widescreen Anderson, so, we're not getting any better on that. I'm conflicted about this movie because I don't hate the setting, and I actually don't hate a lot of the set pieces that happen in the middle of the movie.
I only do because this movie takes place 4 years after the second one.
Yes.
And everything is like this already. Fallout doesn't look this bad.
Well, but
The desert is not going to take over Vegas to the point where buildings are filled up by feet of sand 4 years after an infection started. This felt like Resident Evil: The Next Generation. Like,
yes.
Umbrella happened in 1995, and this is 2055, and this is where America is now, not 4 years later. That's where I think that's where it got me.
So I've been kind of talking about this from the beginning since we first started talking about Resident Evil movies.
Uh-huh.
I think I used to underrate this movie because it was, for me, like the turning point where I thought it completely lost the thread, and they didn't know what they're doing with Alice's powers and all the Alice clones and all that stuff. And that stuff, all the Resident Evil lore aspects of the story, those are significantly worse even than the series was up until now. I mean, Umbrella is just pathetic in this movie.
Yes.
Umbrella is just, they're hiding underground. Apparently everything with releasing the T-virus, at least in the canon of this movie, was accidental, and they're trying to control it or trying to undo it. There don't seem to be many of them left. Dr. Isaacs is kind of doing his own thing. They cast some generic dude, no-name actor as Wesker, the series' big bad, who basically gets nothing to do and has absolutely no impact. So Umbrella just kind of, this is like the lowest that, like, it seems like Umbrella is done. It's like how many bases do they even still have? How many men do they even still have?
To be fair to the movie, it's the same in the video game world at this point. Once Raccoon City happens, Umbrella completely gets taken apart.
Okay, but I'm just bearing in mind what Umbrella is like in the next movies.
Yes, but you have to remember that those movies came out after 5, the video game Resident Evil 5, where everything got changed again. So it's one of those things.
These movies are following their own canon and their own chronology anyway.
Kind of.
They're folding in stuff from the video games, but they're not really following the video games, are they?
But really, the way you look at at least so far, this one in particular, and I know I've seen the 4th movie before, and I haven't seen anything past that, but they're intertwining a lot of things, and I don't blame this movie for not making Wesker seem like a bigger deal, because at this point in the Resident Evil chronological order, he's nothing.
Okay.
He came back, he became kind of a supervillain in Code Veronica, but he was only in Resident Evil. Obviously, he wasn't in 2 or 3, and then he came back in that Dreamcast kind of spin-off game. And that's it. That's all he was. It wasn't until Resident Evil 5 where he really became that big bad. And I'm sure that'll have its place in the movies too. So that part didn't bug me as much, just because, again, I had to put myself into where this came out. And even Resident Evil fans weren't looking at Wesker as being the overall front runner of Umbrella yet, like he would be. So that part I don't have issues with. It's just... Again, it's just a weird pacing of how quickly the world went to shit. Oh, so yeah, they skip. It feels like they skip ahead in time for no reason. There's all this potential. Okay, I mean, it's crazy talking about the last movie, like the last movie left much potential for goodness. Right. But narratively, there's all this stuff that they could have done to, get to where this movie starts. But as a result, it's almost a reverse for me as with the previous movies, where in the previous movies, I thought, I like these movies when they're being Resident Evil, and when they're being just a generic zombie movie, they are super boring. This movie, I think, when it's being a generic zombie movie, it's pretty good. Like, it's decent at being just kind of a post-apocalyptic, like, these survivors, they've got to defend themselves from the zombie crows, and they've got to make it to this facility, and, all the stuff that's just kind of in the nitty-gritty, I think is perfectly fine. But then the opening of the movie and the closing of the movie specifically, and any time that they cut to Dr. Isaacs and his new little AI girl, it is the worst. I will disagree on the ending, but we'll get to that when we get there. I think that is just fandom perspective. But I will agree. I actually think not the opening scene of this movie, but the beginning of the group that Carlos is leading. I think the beginning of that could have led to a really good movie. I think, unlike the first, this one did a great job of at least setting a better stage for the side characters. They weren't there long enough for you to really care about them, but at least all of them kind of had a little bit of a backstory first. And I like some of the relationships that they were showing. It just was such a small part of this movie before the crows attacked, and you lose half of them, that it really wasn't able to stick. But like, I agree, as far as just being a zombie movie, that first section when they get to like the motel area and they're checking out and they're having conversations and stuff, and you have the guy that knows what's in the cans because he's done it for so long. I loved that section of this movie. Unfortunately, it was only like 10 minutes of this movie.
A love would be a little bit too strong. There are things I don't like about it. Like, I don't like that they took the most likable character from the last movie, Mike Epps. Mike Epps' character, I forget what his name is. TJ, BJ, I don't know. But they took him
LJ,
and they
LJ.
made him the LJ. They made him the generic, guy with zombie bite who hides the zombie bite for the majority of the story. Until like the pivotal moment where he bites Oded, and then Oded has, he decides to sacrifice himself in a big explosion. But
why is that such a generic zombie thing? There's always one that gets bit and then has to hide it and then turns.
It's just one of the tropes of the
always
genre.
Happens.
And these are genre films above all else, right? So, whenever Paul Anderson can lean into cliche, he will do that. So we get a lot of cliche. I mean, it's nothing but cliches. But at least it's fairly well done for that part of it. But let's talk about the stuff that I don't think is well done. Let's start at the beginning. In each of these episodes, I like to at least remember what happened at the end of the last movie. You've already talked about how there's a 4-year span. So at the end of the last movie, we see Alice escaping from Umbrella Corporation, and Dr. Isaac reveals that this was all on purpose, that they let her go, and everything is working out according to plan. Like, presumably they are going to use her for something, or continue to monitor her, or experiment, send more things after her for her to defeat so they can see how strong she is, or whatever the heck Umbrella is up to in regards to Alice. So that's our ending. Now we say, skip ahead 4 years, and we have that visualization where we literally see the entire Earth turn to desert. And later on in the movie, there's like a shot in space where we see an Umbrella satellite, which, by the way, Alice telekinetically breaks from afar, one of her powers. We see an Umbrella satellite orbiting Earth, and again, we see that, like, okay, that visualization from the beginning of the movie, that was not like some joke for the prologue or a computer simulation or something that is not necessarily not real. Like, that is actually, like, Earth is just a desert. And you'd think that you could disregard that to some degree because, they filmed this movie. This movie is set, it starts in, like, Utah, and it goes to Nevada. So we're in the desert for the entire movie anyway, and it just looks like the desert. So you don't really need that framing device at all. You don't really need the post-apocalypse to look like that and then screw up the continuity with your next movie.
Well, we won't get to it, but just looking at this movie on its own, I kind of do like how they framed that. Again, I don't believe like the desert would have taken over Vegas in 4 years, but I do like that they at least attempted to explain it by saying that the T-virus killed everything. It wasn't just humans or animals, like trees died, and so at least they attempted.
We still see some grasses, like patches of like weeds.
Well, there's
and
still
grass
living humans
on
still.
like roads.
I mean, so it's not. It'll take its time.
But how does the T-virus generate a desert storm that encompasses the entire world?
I don't get. I still don't think, even though they showed it like that, I doubt New York looks like Vegas right now.
No, we see the entire, North and South America. We see the entire United States just brown. Well,
brown,
covered in desert.
Brown is different than desert. Brown could just be dead trees, and like if I don't water my lawn, my lawn looks brown.
It's like a okay. I just
I get what you're saying. They went way too over the top with it.
the impression that you got from this movie is that the whole world looks like what you see in this movie, even though it is, set in an area that already looks like that anyway. So again, completely pointless. So it's 4 years later, and in the meantime, Umbrella have decided that now they want Alice back. We set Alice, free, but never mind that. Let's bring her back in for some reason. So that's Isaac's goal now, is that he wants to bring Alice back in because he wants to collect her blood, and he is monitoring her from afar. He can literally plug into her ocular vision and see what she sees
but they can't
via
find
satellite.
her.
But they can't find her. Yeah, so they can plug into her vision and see what's she looking like. Where is she? What's she looking at? So you've got that. The movie begins after the prologue that tells us that the whole world is dead now, basically, and humanity is essentially gone, and nowhere is livable anymore, really. After all that, we then start in the first movie. Naked Alice waking up in the mansion, going down into the Umbrella Lab, encountering the lasers, dealing with a zombie, and getting herself killed, and then we realize, oh, okay, that is not just a flashback or a dream or some other kind of weird repeat of the first movie, but rather Dr. Isaacs has recreated the facility from the first movie as a training facility so that he can keep running Alice's through it for some reason.
So he's trying to duplicate her, and that's why they need her back, because she has... So
is it just that he can't quite get it right? These Alices just aren't good enough.
He sent her off after doing all the tests and obviously cloned her a bunch. We see that at the very, very end. And he's just trying to... Because she's technically just a weapon. That was the whole point of the second movie, was to figure out which weapon was better, Alice or Nemesis. And Alice won that fight. So now the whole point of the T-Virus is to try to create these... not clones, but these giant... basically an army, and things went wrong and turned them into zombies. And that's the game, that's the movies. And so they just cannot get it right. And he's like, screw it, I need the original back. And I do have to say, it's not this scene, but a little later, I kind of like the scenes where they're trying to domesticate the zombie.
Yeah, but nothing comes of that.
No, again, it's just...
we just see that it's something that they're working on, and then later on, it's almost as if he's just doing it as a way to fool the other Umbrella executives into thinking that that's what he's doing, when really he's doing something else.
That's also possible.
It's almost an afterthought, and it doesn't actually have any application. I don't really know. I guess it's just there to convince the other members of the board that his goal is to pacify... the zombie population or whatever, when really his goal is...
Again, this is my link to Resident Evil 4, because obviously zombies are slow and they're really dangerous in groups. With the zombie that he creates and the zombies in Resident Evil 4, they have more of a brain and are able to work together and run, and you see that when he gets released. Again, it's one of those, just like those relationships we saw at the motel, there's just not enough time before they just get scrapped to really invest in it. Again, it was just one of those. I like the idea they started on. They just didn't.
Yes,
they just didn't go with it. Obviously, it's totally different to be able to do the Walking Dead TV series to a 2-hour movie, but
okay,
that
you have here a film series.
I know, but I'm just saying that idea would have been way cooler in a TV series where we saw that build up more and more. You can't do that in 2 or 3 scenes.
No, but here's my argument against that is you here have you don't need, there's a lot of fluff in this movie, even though I think that a lot of that stuff in the middle of the movie is good. You could have easily cut the more generic elements of this movie to make more room for Umbrella Corporation stuff.
Yes.
If you really wanted, you could have just put your focus somewhere else.
We're missing a movie.
Yeah. And not just that, not only are we missing a movie, but you're saying this is better suited for a TV series. This is a film series of 6 movies that are each 90 minutes to an hour 40 or so. You've got 8-9 hours to tell your story.
Unfortunately, it's a different story every time. And they go,
but it's one guy. It's just Paul Widescreen Anderson writing every single one of these movies. There's nothing stopping him from just telling a coherent, continuous story from beginning to end.
There is something stopping him, and it's called Paul Anderson.
Okay. Well, fair enough. My point that I was trying to get at about the opening scene is that opening scene is so close to, in framing and editing and like everything about it, it's basically just remember the first movie. It's there to exactly evoke the first movie, and I'm so sick of every one of these movies starting up. Except, the second movie started with this. The second movie specifically, like, backed the timeline up to before the outbreak so that they could do that again.
And here's a little highlight package of the first movie in case you missed it.
And now we get it again in a slightly different form.
Oh, just wait till the fourth one. We're going to get it from Rat View or something.
Yeah, he's just Paul Anderson is just this guy. He's like the DJ who has one track and he just can't stop remixing it.
Well, you know what?
Because it's all he has.
That has worked for the Fast and Furious franchise, and unfortunately, it just didn't work for the Resident Evil franchise.
I don't know, man. I could point to those Fast and Furious movies being pretty different from each other and going for pretty different things. Like, your second movie is all
well, I guess I'm just looking from like 5 on. Once they just became a cash cow, it's just let's go completely over the top ridiculous. Whoever the bad guy was in the last movie is now having to team up with us in this movie, and we're all going to go have a fun payday and make millions and millions of dollars doing the same thing over and over. I agree. The first 4 movies were different.
Okay. But yeah, you're right. You do become, to me, it's more like, they become more like Avengers movies.
And they're just fun. They're just dumb fun.
At that point. These movies are not like that. Like, there's way more continuity, even with the messed up, even though you've got to say, like, okay, it's kind of weird that because we wanted to keep Han around for 4, that Tokyo Drift takes place, I guess, between 4 and 5? Or 5 and 6? I forget where Tokyo Drift falls in the chronology.
Nobody dies in that movie anyways. We're going. Why? Speaking of zombies,
no hand. Oh, yeah. So, well, that's true. Yeah. Nobody dies in the final analysis. Nobody dies.
Tokyo Drift. He was in this last trailer.
But still, right. The point is that they ended up like weirdly reshuffling the movie chronology in order to make that work.
I agree.
Even at the time when we did think that Han was dead. Or specifically at that time. So there's some messiness with that, but it's not to the same level. No. It's not, and it's also not like a single creative voice. This is the singular vision of one Paul W.S. Anderson.
He has multiple voices in his head, unfortunately.
Okay, so yeah, he does what he's always done. And then we're off to a totally different movie where, we go through the motion of trying to get supplies and introducing us to all the survivors.
By the way, those survivors, they missed out on a perfect opportunity. They meet a little girl who is called Kmart. I wanted more people named after stores that they were met at. And it did make me laugh. I watched this with my girlfriend, and we both kind of had that sad laugh of a zombie movie, and this girl's named Kmart. No, Kmart's dead. I blame this movie.
That is something that is the sort of thing that fits into the genre, though. The pragmatic nicknames or the tragic
obviously
backstory.
It came far later, but what was the Woody Harrelson one?
Oh, Zombieland.
They did that too. So.
Oh yeah.
But I want to get to the 2 big scenes because.
Well, we've got to. Didn't you want to talk about how we talked about this off air a little bit? We were just talking about the survivors. We get Ali Larter from Heroes as Claire Redfield or Underwood. What is Claire's last name? Claire Underwood is House of Cards. So that's not it. Redfield. Okay, so that was correct. And for some reason, I was having. As soon as I said it, I started having doubts in my mind. But. They don't do nearly. I think both Oded Fehr and Ali Larter are really good in this movie, and they don't give them nearly enough to do.
No.
And I really think that Claire could have had the potential to be a cool character.
Well, she should have been the star of the movie, but we have this Alice thing.
Mm-hmm. And but curiously missing Jill.
Yeah, they don't say anything. I mean, yes, it's 4 years and people split up and stuff, but it's like, what happened? Where?
Yeah. So what are the 2 big scenes? What are the 2 big scenes?
2 big scenes is the crow fight, which is
that was good
at first until Alice showed up with her superpowers.
Yes,
and then it just ruined it again. I'm glad in the fourth one, I believe they get rid of it. But I told you after I watched this movie, I go, there was so much in 4 that I thought was in 3.
Like what?
Well, we'll get to it when I watch 4. But there were scenes, like I got done, I go, but I thought this happened in this. And I thought this was, nope, that was 4. Okay.
Okay, so her powers in this movie manifest themselves in 3 ways, right? 1, the ass kicking. So she's still supernaturally good at ass kicking. Number 2, she is able to telekinetically disable the Umbrella satellite. She can think about it real hard, and then we flash to Umbrella satellite, and like a chip just like cracks.
That's so cheesy.
Yeah, and then in this sequence with the crows, at the very end of it, just when you think all is lost and that Carlos is going to get killed by the crows, she erects a force field to protect them.
Well, that was still telekinetic mumbo jumbo. I don't know. It's just dumb.
Right, but okay, so so previously she could make a dude bleed out of she could kill a dude, basically like squish his brain telekinetically or whatever, out of his nose. And in this movie, she can telekinetically crush a computer chip in space. But force field, I think, is a slightly different kind of power type.
She's had 4 years.
Fair enough. So this is like Wonder Woman deciding, I've now learned how to turn things invisible, therefore invisible jet. Sorry, spoiler for Wonder Woman 84.
and then the second one is, again, at the super mutant fight. I guess they're super mutants. The smarter mutants. I actually kind of like that fight scene a little bit more, but once again, it just kind of shows that they had this cool thing that could have been really awesome or interesting, and they just kill it off in one fight scene. Like, I think Alice should have been shut down longer, but she just dominates. She dominates that entire fight. That's
these movies in a nutshell. Is they introduce really threatening thing, and then really threatening thing gets defeated immediately, or just within one fight scene. The liquor, I guess, they had to do it twice in the first movie. That's the one exception I can think of.
Yeah, well, why are liquors? Why are they still not a thing?
Are liquors? I don't remember a liquor in this movie.
That's what I'm saying. Where'd they go?
Oh, where are they?
Though, to be fair,
no, I mean,
they weren't in 4 either. Like the video game, they kind of went away for a little bit too. So
that's true, but we only saw the one. This is one thing with these movies is that each of these monsters, other than like the zombie dogs and the general zombies, like we usually get one.
We got 3 liquors in the second movie in the church.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But they all
more
got
liquors.
blowed up in the raccoon. They were a Raccoon City thing apparently.
So every liquor that we have seen has been destroyed. So who knows? Maybe there were only 4 liquors.
All the other containers just never opened. All right, and then I want to get to the final boss of this movie real quick. So God, I always forget the doctor's name. You said it 20 times.
Dr. Isaacs, Ian Glenn's character,
gets bit. Wow, by one of the super mutants that he created as they were trying to escape from Alice, who just knew exactly which rooftop they were on. And so he gives himself 127 doses of the vaccine because it's obviously what he's created has made the mutation grow faster. And not only does it go faster,
this is the rule of any medicine is that when you take more of it, it's better.
Yes. And I will say I do like that this movie continues the Resident Evil thing that this mutation will create something, and if that mutation scratches you or bites you, it changes what you are. So that's why the liquor scratches Alice's boyfriend in the first movie and he becomes Nemesis. Mm-hmm. The super mutant dude bites the Dr. Isaacs and he becomes basically a mix of a tyrant and something from Resident Evil 4. And honestly, the fight is terrible and cheesy and dumb. However, as a Resident Evil fan, this is the most Resident Evil we've gotten. This is a final boss scene in any Resident Evil game where there's a lot of build up, there's not much to do, you can't really kill them. The only thing we're missing is a rocket launcher because that's how you finish every final boss in the Resident Evil series. But they wanted to get that laser thing back together. I actually really enjoyed this scene. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's good.
No.
I'm not saying it's good.
Yeah,
but as a Resident Evil fan, I applauded it and said, that is Resident Evil.
To describe what happens, mutated Dr. Isaac chases Alice into the laser hallway from the first movie. And then the lasers get activated and chop Dr. Isaacs into little bits, exactly like the black SWAT team guy from the first movie. And then we cut away to see that one of Alice's clones stopped the laser just before it hit Alice. So the laser goes like all the way up to our primary Alice and then turns itself off. And we're like, what saved her? Oh, it was Deus Ex Alice.
The only thing I was disappointed in is they showed multiple times in that boss fight that Isaacs could mend himself, right? He would get cut.
So you would think the parts should have just like flowed back together like the T-2000.
Anybody that's played Resident Evil 2 knows that one of the main bad guys turns into this giant blob that starts eating the train. I wanted him just to be...
And reforms,
I just wanted him to become a giant blob with his face. It would have been great.
Cool. I don't know if anything that cool ever happens in this movie. Or in these movies, that is. See, I think that whole sequence sucks.
I'm sure, but you're not a Resident Evil fan. It's cheesy and terrible, but as a Resident Evil fan, I went, yes, finally.
No. What sucks about it is the climax, the fact that they do it, that it has to be a callback. It has to be, remember the lasers? Remember the coolest thing? Everything is just about bringing back whatever the cool things from the first movie that resonated, let's bring those back. Because people like that laser sequence, so let's do the laser sequence again. I'm sick of the damn laser sequence. Give me any other way to beat him.
That's true. I will agree with that.
And then I hate Deus Ex Alice. And she's got like Alice and Deus Ex Alice both have like these singers that are non-singers that are terrible. I've already forgotten them. But they're delivered like they're your typical, action movie quip, and they're just nothing. And it sucks. I'm sorry. It's a terrible finale.
Again, I'm not saying it's good. It just, that was the most Resident Evil we've gotten in 3 movies.
Fair enough. But that's not the end of the suckage. Because we then get to the big reveal. So first, Alice finds another Alice kind of swimming in her little globe of life-preserving liquid, incubating. And, Alice like puts her hand to the liquid, and they have like a little moment. And she comes out of it and dies, and it's sad. But then the camera pulls back, and lo and behold, it's a gigantic warehouse just stuffed to the brim with Alices. Just thousands upon thousands of Alices.
Hey, this was you hated Alice in this movie series? Have lots of them now. Now, the one thing we didn't touch on is Alice is the cure.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's the other thing. She's the chosen one. Her blood has the antidote, or is the basis of the antidote.
And that'll, I'm sure, play into nothing.
I wish I remembered.
I just remember what happens with all these clones, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that's watching along with us, but...
That'll be an exciting thing to talk about next time.
I have to say, I'm really excited, because again, I stopped at 4, and 4 is probably my favorite.
Interesting.
So I'm curious to see if I remember. And I was looking, just because I was trying to remember different names and stuff.
Is 4 Afterlife?
Yes.
That's the one where they went to 3D, right?
Yes.
That's the first one that had the 3D
bullshit.
Okay. That movie has some stuff in it that I like, and it has some stuff in it that I really cannot stand, so...
But man, these movies do so good out of North America.
Yeah, man, I don't understand it. I cannot wrap my head around it.
I blame Europe. They love cheesy shit. That's why David Hasselhoff was so big in the 90s.
Oh, come on.
No, I don't know which market.
No, the difference. The way I have always understood the European market is that European star power is just a bigger thing in Europe. That you can sell a movie based on a big actor. Like you can put even at like the height of Will Smith's career, he could not carry Wild Wild West because Wild Wild West is so terrible. But movies like that, there are lots of movies that flop in America. If they've got a big star, they're still going to do okay in Europe. And, the fact that the dialogue sucks doesn't matter as much in foreign markets because stuff's dubbed anyway.
True.
And people give the movies some benefit of the doubt that maybe something was lost in translation or whatever.
Well,
Just like it's funny, when you watch any foreign films, I don't know if you have this psychological phenomenon, I certainly have it. You just generally give more gravitas to the thing that is said in a foreign language and subtitled. And you don't question the acting as much.
yeah, I think you're probably right. But the last thing I will say about this movie, and kind of so far where we're at in this series in general, at least these movies aren't long.
Yeah. But you know what, though? I find them pretty hard to watch. And I don't mean in the sense of like unpleasant. It's not a Serbian film or something, right? Like it's not that, or 8mm. It's not that kind of hard to watch. It's hard to watch in the sense that my attention span drifts, and I'll find myself like having to rewind because I just genuinely, I didn't listen to any of that dialogue. I better watch that scene again. And I also ended up having to take a lot of breaks.
But again, this is only a 94-minute movie. Imagine if this was over 2 hours long.
How long a movie is and how long a movie feels, there's a big difference.
True.
And
very true.
They always said that there was a shorter cut of The Godfather that felt a lot longer. And then Robert Evans made or told Coppola, hey, you can put another 40 minutes back into this movie. And it's weird. I used to have like a saintly attention span as a child. I would watch these sprawling multi-hour epics as a child, and they would completely hold my attention. And now I'm just like, oh God, this Resident Evil movie, I can't do it in one sitting. It's too much. It's so boring.
Luckily, sir, we are now halfway through.
Yeah, it's true.
We made it halfway. Last thought on this one.
I like that they bring back the main title theme from the first movie, the Marco Beltrami theme that opens and closes the first Resident Evil movie. There are several prominent points in this movie where you hear it, and it's like over a cool rock riff or something.
Yeah, they remixed it pretty good. I'll agree there.
Yeah. Yep. So I like that.
So there you go. We are done with Resident Evil Extinction. Oh, we need to give it a grade, huh?
Yes.
We almost forgot.
Almost. No, it was on the back of. I was.
All right.
I was waiting for you to bring it up.
So let's get a score here, just as a recap for Resident Evils, and maybe give you an idea of what you want to do. On the first one, we agreed was a 4.5. The second one we agreed was a 3. Now the question is Extinction better or worse than Apocalypse?
I think it's as good as the first one. I'll give it a 4.5.
See, I don't think I would go that far. As good. I mean, none of these have been good.
I think in terms of filmmaking, it's better than the first one. And there are big chunks of it that I like better than the first one. And then there are other chunks of it that just suck. So I can't go all the way up to a 5, but I can go.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 4. Just, I don't think I can reach. I still think the first one's my favorite of the 3 so far. But this was definitely better than the second one. I mean, we've ripped on it now for 40 minutes, but this was better than the second one. Mm-hmm. So, and now we will get to Resident Evil Afterlife, which is the 4th one in the film. It's the last one I've ever seen, so we'll see if I remember it as fondly as I think I do. I do believe out of these 4, it was my favorite. Not to say it was good.
It's got some highlights.
But we will get to that. Obviously, if you like the video game content, you can check out our normal video game chapter select podcast where Undertale is next. And that'll be our next episode next Friday. And of course, we'll be here in 2 weeks' time to review Resident Evil Afterlife. But until then, that's Jens, I'm Randy, and we will see you in the next chapter.